Hey, everybody, this is Mark Levine, and you're listening to the NYC Real Estate Podcast. I am one of the owners of EBMG, which is a New York City-based property management firm, and we manage about close to 200 buildings at this point. Today, we've got a great guest on the show, Ashley Sweet from iES MACH. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. We're winding down. I think you're probably going to be the last podcast of the year. So you got the distinction of, ending 2020 on the right note.
I was going to say, I don't know if that's like a good or a bad thing, but hopefully it's
totally positive. I'm actually on vacation this week. So, this is like a nice time. Actually, you've saved me because today I was using my time to go through my bed bugs filing. Because in New York City, you have to, for all registered buildings in the city, you have to once a year do like a bed bug filing in December. And we have about 200 of those that we have to do. And it's simple. It doesn't really take too much time, but it's one of those monotonous tasks that I do every year. I don't have a staff member do it. It's kind of like my end of year, it's like folding laundry. It's a mundane task that you don't have to do anything for. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Let me just tell everybody, if you want to email the show, NYC Real Estate Podcast @gmail.com. Again, that's NYC Real Estate Podcast @gmail.com. If you want to call me on my office phone, which also sends it over to my cell phone, you can do it at 212-335-2723, extension 201. Again, that's 212-335-2723, extension 201. And I have a 13-year-old daughter, so she set me up on TikTok. If you want to follow me on TikTok, it's @Mark in Real Estate. Pretty easy, right? Yesterday, it was very exciting. I have this, I've been going through like a lot of like cool gifts that I've gotten or I've given. And I got this ice cube maker. And it's one of those mold, like the silicone molds, but it creates clear, like completely crystal clear ice. And if you like cocktails, that like makes a huge difference. And I've always had I know this is not real estate related, but it's the end of the year. I'm on vacation. We might as well.
Exactly.
So I did this whole TikTok video because it's a 3-piece set and it's called On the Rocks. And this is not being promoted in any way, shape or form. I'm not getting any money for this. Like literally I bought this, and you can get the molds for spheres, or you can get it for huge cubes. And it's a insulated box that you essentially fill up with water, and then you put the mold in, and you put it into the freezer, and you take it out, and you have to like melt the ice that settled on the bottom. It's a whole complicated thing that's not really that complicated, but it's got these huge crystal clear ice cubes that I'm just storing away for when we have a party once COVID's over, which is going to be a perfect cocktail party with those perfect cocktail, cubes. So my daughter, she filmed me doing that. I felt like an idiot, but she's into it. So whatever. So
that's amazing.
Follow me. You don't have TikTok. We're going to get you on TikTok because we could cross, promote stuff, which would be great.
Absolutely. You just convinced me. I was thinking about it because like you said, you just got a ton of likes from it. And I was like, all right, I mean, I'll just start posting about anything random while also promoting the business. And I think that's the wave of the future. Yeah.
And it is great because I've used, obviously we're doing the podcast. I've used like YouTube, and I've used Instagram, but I feel like if you have something to say that's interesting and you bring it to where the attention is, there's a lot of people, and no matter what you're into, somebody's going to be into what you're into, so whatever it is that you choose to go and do a video about. But
absolutely.
I feel like I'm going off topic. I feel like people in their cars are screaming. So do you want to give us your bad? So the way that we met through Marshall Fulton over at Bank United, probably about a year or two ago, right?
A year ago
before COVID. We met at an event, and we've been talking ever since, and we're trying to figure out ways to work together. But I like there's two specific things that I wanted to talk to you about in terms of what your company does. But before that, why don't you give us an overview of your background, how you got into working with iES MACH, what you've been focusing on, and anything else you want to kind of give us?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did meet a year ago, and you told me about this podcast, and I was like, oh, that is so great, because not a lot of people were doing it, especially in this industry. And I was like, oh, he's got something going on. And I think a year ago is when we first talked about recording something together. I don't think either of us would have believed like where we would be now when we finally got to sit down to record it. But
I mean, we're doing this through Zoom for people that aren't seeing it. So
Yeah.
we expected fully for you to be in my office. I have like the recording studio in my conference room. That's just not happening anymore. So
Yeah, I think we made the whole plan and we're going to make a day of it. So,
yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
yeah.
It was like,
So,
oh yeah, you come out, we'll go to lunch. Like we'll burn a day, but now it's
yeah,
just, we'll burn a half hour on Zoom and you get to go back to work. So it's perfect.
exactly.
Really great.
Yeah. So I am a sales and business development expert. I've been in the commercial real estate industry for going on 8 years now. Now, currently, my role is I'm director of national sales for iES MACH. So we're a technology company, and we focus on energy management and indoor air quality management. So my role here is I work with owner operators all around the country. I'm currently based in Chicago. I lived in New York City for 10 years before this. So I still work with my clients back in New York and in Florida, like yourself. And then I focus on our big Midwest relationships. I'm a Midwestern girl at heart. You and I are both Ohio State grads. So,
well, I'm not a grad. I went there for a year and then I transferred out. But yeah, we were both at Ohio State. I was probably there a lot sooner than you. You were probably in second grade when I was there. I'm not going to go through your age, but I'm feeling it in my knees now. Yeah. But where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Right.
Yeah. And
I actually liked Ohio a lot. It was beautiful. I spent a year out, as we said, in Columbus. I have a bunch of friends, who was like Toledo and Columbus and Cincinnati and Cleveland. Like being at Ohio State, you have a lot of obviously people from, Ohio, but everybody that I met there was super nice. And, funny enough, I've seen a bunch of them have moved around me where I am right now. So I just even going to Target, I see like some of my fraternity brothers. It's like the weirdest thing ever. But it's great. Yeah. So how did you, okay. So let's get back to you, because I don't want to make this about me. Yeah. I'll give you the stage. So you're working on business development, and the two products that we spoke about, as you said, were the energy management and also the monitoring of the air quality, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we're in, and I'll put links to all of your contact information in the description of the video as well, or of the description of the podcast, so anybody can get in touch with you. And then we'll go through that at the end also. In COVID times, which we're running in now, I could see that being a big uptick for your air quality management software. Can you walk us through what that type of software is and where it's put? Let's take it from a residential building perspective or a commercial building.
Yeah, absolutely. So the product is called WellStat. It's the indoor air quality monitoring, IAQ monitoring. And it was actually brought to the market. I think the year was 2017. So this is by no means a 2020 solution. It was like our company really saw a need in the marketplace because air is so important to people's health and well-being. And there's all different kinds of studies from everywhere from Harvard to Columbia, everything, that say, your tenant well-being, your employee well-being is one of the most important things, and air quality is actually one of the most important things that affects well-being. And then that affects all things like productivity or how much someone will pay for a condo unit. All those things, especially as healthy buildings have become more important and popular over the last 5 to 10 years. Indoor air quality is one of those huge factors that allows an owner operator to say, hey, this is a top-notch, top quality building, because the healthiest and happiest people are going to reside in it, or are going to live and work in it. So our company, I didn't work here at the time, but invented WellStat just for that reason. And then this year, of course, it's serving a whole extra purpose, helping reoccupy buildings with commercial tenants, helping retain tenants in a building, helping lease up, helping sell units, because you can say, hey, we're using this WellStat product and we're proving that the air quality is premium, and here is all the value behind that. So it's been really interesting. The company has been growing so much. I actually came on board in the middle of the pandemic here, because we're just exploding right now all over the country. And a lot of that is the demand for the well stat.
What type? So this came out before COVID, obviously, as you said, but what are the markers that it's looking for in terms of measuring air quality? What specifically are they looking at so that you can get the report on that? And I guess my next question after that would be, I have this data. What do I do with it? Like, how do I take this information, this data? I have this concern in the common area or in the building itself, and maybe in the residential units, maybe in the offices. I know that this part of the building is not quote unquote healthy. How do I counteract that? Like, what's the process for the next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're tracking 9 different compounds. So CO2, humidity, temperature, that's kind of standard, but then we're doing 3 different sizes of particulate matter.
Right.
We're also doing formaldehyde, VOCs, ozone. I think that was all 9. But so the whole point is, whatever sensor you're using now is probably doing your humidity, your CO2, and your temperature. And this is just getting a really granular whole picture, kind of good MRI into what's going on in the air. And it's also doing it in real time. So, that's something that's also just completely valuable. You can just say, your leasing person or your property manager at any time and say, hey, we're confident because we can see, that, hey, this IAQ is healthy or the air is premium or however you want to say it. And then to your point where, if you see a spike or if you see some inconsistencies, like what's going on. And it can be, a host of different things. Like we're providing reports and advisements and alerting when a compound is out of range, particularly outside of a certain amount of time, there actually might be an issue. If your formaldehyde is spiking, what's being used in your cleaning product or certain things like that. Obviously, particulate matter, what if there's a spike in viral particles, that could be construction, but that could be something else that's unhealthy in the air. And it could mean bring in more fresh air, or it could mean you need to redo something on one of your HVAC systems and things like that. The other thing it's really useful in doing, and especially because of COVID, a lot of our clients are installing bipolar ionization and UV into their HVAC systems, and it's it's supposed to be cleaning the air, for lack of a better word, but there isn't a great way to actually monitor what those systems are doing, or if they're creating too much ozone or something like that. So it's a great kind of hand-in-hand platform where it's like, hey, if you want to make this investment to do bipolar ionization, which I can't say, you want to track it pretty granularly to make sure it's doing what it should, or, do you need it or do you not?
So the buildings I would take, and there's certain restrictions now with buildings reopening gyms or reopening certain areas and amenities that they have to have filtration systems and HVAC. But taking that a step further, if we took what you said is the UV light that's treating the air that's moving through, but we don't know what's happening we don't know what the outcome of that and what the other problems that are being made from that. So now your other product, the handshake is, okay, we're monitoring the ozone, we're monitoring the humidity, we're monitoring the particulate matter. And that's what the bipolar ionization.
Yeah.
Either way, you're from Ohio. I mean, I don't trust anything you say.
I know, thank you.
You say pop. I'm sorry, it's soda.
I
know. So that's great. So the sensor itself isn't necessarily monitoring anything from the COVID era of particulate matter, but it's working hand in hand with that UV sanitizing to make sure that there's no ill effects from the UV sanitizing and that your building is within the allowable limits. Does that sound like I've got a wrap on it?
Yeah, you got it. And, we can't say that we're tracking COVID particles or whatever, but I don't know that there is anything that can do that. I think of the liability and all the lawyers that need to be involved in creating something like that. I don't think anyone's done it, but we do have 3 different sizes of particulate matter that are these sizes of dangerous particles, usually fall into that size range. Again, we can't say it's COVID, but it is tracking enough information and in real time, so you can be confident that, hey, this air is healthy, nothing unhealthy is going on in the air.
And where are we putting these monitoring devices? Are they in the hallways? Are they in the units themselves? Let's say I have a 90 unit building. Am I putting it only on the 9 hallways, or am I putting them in particular particular apartments within the building? Is it strategic, or is it just wherever I want to try to get that information?
Yeah, so it depends on really what kind of goal you want to accomplish. Most of the clients will do like a full installation where they're doing at least one sensor on every floor in common areas. So you're talking about a multifamily, in the lobby, in the common areas, and 1 or 2 on every floor, depending on the infrastructure of the building. So you can get a floor by floor read and a clear picture, and then say in marketing wise, that we're monitoring the air floor by floor. We're confident. It's like I said, the whole MRI, the whole picture of what's going on everywhere.
How's that spit out? Is it through a database? Do I have like a dashboard online that I go to and that pulls all the information so I can see it floor by floor, sensor by sensor?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a pretty thorough dashboard where, basically the first page you start and you get kind of like the floor by floor heat map, what's going on. It's all color coded. So when it, is a certain color, something's out of range, then you can click on, to see certain floor, and then also sensor by sensor. So it's like you've got one on the east wing, one in the west, floor 7. You can get that granular clicking by sensor, because sometimes it is like, there is construction going on in one area, or there's formaldehyde in one area from a cleaning product or something like that. So you want to have a good idea of, I guess a smaller area to be like, okay, like west side 7th floor, that's where the issue is.
Yeah. I know that when I have these types of systems on boilers, it's helpful because something that you don't really look for, I mean, you look for it, but you don't know about it until you know about it, is something like water loss. So if I get a report that says, well, you lost 500 gallons of water and the allowable threshold is, let's say, 30 gallons of water a day, like that's a huge issue. But I wouldn't have known about it unless I had the software to tell me about it. So it's proactively telling me that there's a leak that's going to save me money by allowing me to fix it possibly months before it shows up as a real problem in the building, because it takes time to have the negative effect. So if I have something like your dashboard where I could see, okay, there's construction in apartment 505, and now the 5th floor and the 6th floor are picking up this particulate matter, or they're picking up something else in the air, that's going to at least let me say, oh, wow, we've got to work with those contractors to get an airlock in place. We've got to make sure that we do a better job taking out all of that bad air, and, anything that's hanging around, we need to ventilate a little bit better. But it's also going to, I guess, let's say on the other side, if the humidity is up in the building, well, maybe there's some roof fans that aren't working and I have to go look. So it's like a cause and effect. Okay. Now you're not giving me the actual fix, but you're giving me the tools so that I could go down the rabbit hole of figuring out what's wrong. And I know, when I was going through school and I was going, in college, it was like that sick building syndrome. You don't really hear too much about it anymore. I just don't hear about it, but this is exactly what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid just stale air that's not getting recirculated, and it's unhealthy air. So I think putting your product in there probably helps for that too. Just making sure that everything, as you said, is running healthy, that we don't have anything lingering in the air that doesn't belong there. And if we do, trying to figure out, do you work with other specialists to say, okay, they have this problem, here's 5 things that showed up on their report. Maybe it's outside the scope of either the management company, or maybe there's no vendor that we know of that could specifically help with with one type of fix. Is that something that you could push us off to as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that our team does work, our development team and our engineers do closely work with other outside sustainability consultants or experts in this area. And that's how we have defined ranges that we came up with that we think are appropriate for indoor air quality. And we use like ASHRAE, CDC, like all the organizations we need to. And then, yeah, absolutely. One thing that I think our team is really good at is the white glove service. So it's not only like you're a client, you're talking to me. It's, you have an engineer, you have a developer who are all kind of assigned to you. And it's like, you see one spike in one thing, like you can call like 3 different people and we'll remote in and look at what's going on and figure out if there's actually, you need to bring in something else. Like it's a bigger problem. But we can probably tell, like we're, always on call. So we'll be able to tell you right away, like,
Right.
hey, it's a bigger issue or it's not, or this is what we think you should do, or here's another person we recommend talking to because it's actually a bigger HVAC issue or something like that.
Yeah. And I guess at this point you have enough data where you can see trends and you can see, that certain issues with the levels lead to other issues with the levels, and you can guide your clients towards best practices to say, okay, if you see this, this is probable, this is maybe what you have, take a look at this, also look at these levels, all this information works together, and it's all about just having the data and the information to make the best decisions. So I'm just, that's probably the most interesting thing about growing, especially for you, probably for the past year or so, is just having the ability to see all this data come in and like, what do you do with that data? Just how can you make it better? How can you make it better for the client? Like that's the stuff that I look at internally too, for my company. We have access to all this data now, and it's just, okay, trends, it's data, it's information. How are we presenting it? How are we using it? What does it mean? And that's the give and take of having the information, is just trying to figure out next steps. So that's really great. And okay, so we've talked about that. Let's talk about your energy. Why don't I don't want to say it wrong. So you have a system that monitors the energy usage in the buildings, right?
Yes.
And what that hooks into everything from heating and electric?
Absolutely, yes. So that is MACH Energy, well-known energy monitoring platform in around the country and in the industry. We work with hundreds of buildings up and down the East Coast and hundreds throughout the rest of the US.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's similar with the WellStat. Actually, the WellStat software is modeled off of the energy software. But yeah, we're monitoring electricity, heat, steam, whatever you got going on in your building, and especially too from an enterprise level. So people who are looking at a lot of buildings, our software is giving you great reporting in real time on a dashboard, and to get a good picture on like, oh, hey, startup time is this time this day in this building, and do things like that. And then here are the dollars that you can actually save. One thing that we're doing for our energy clients, and this is a COVID thing, but we've actually, like, there is a widget on certain clients' dashboards where some buildings commercially aren't occupied, so we're able to show them like every day, like, oh, here's how much money this saved, or here's how much money this saved, and do this a little bit differently with your electricity, tomorrow, things like that. So we're working, we're New York-based company, so a lot of the buildings around New York City are using the MACH Energy software.
Where does it hook into? Where's the actual component put in the building?
So, I mean, obviously it depends building by building, but we have meters that we will put attached to your meters, and then they feed back like through a bridge and then to the MACH Energy platform.
So similar to what we saw before with trends, we'll be able to see over a year the trend of, this is how much water you're using, this is how much electricity you're using, this is how much gas, or this is how much oil, with the boilers going through. And then we could use that so that we can make better decisions. And in New York City, especially, we've done other podcasts on it, but we've got a lot of energy initiatives that are being undertaken by the city now for buildings, especially that are over 25,000 square feet. So by 2050, we have to, I think 80%, we have to go down on our energy usage. And there's certain benchmarks starting, I believe, in 2024 that start there and then they go down. And if you're not going down by 80%, you get flagged and you get penalized per unit, and it's expensive. I mean, it can be an extremely expensive thing to undertake. And conveniently, all of New York City owned buildings, I believe, are exempt. They like to put out the rules, but they don't want to put in the time and energy and effort to do it themselves, which I get. They own a lot of buildings and they oversee a lot of buildings, and they want to put it on the masses to make the shift. But at the same time, it's a lot of work. So all of this information would be available again on a dashboard, and I would be able to talk with either your company or my consultants that could go through that. Is that something that for those yearly filings, or I guess the every 10-year filings, like the local law 87 for buildings that are over 50,000 square feet, it would probably be interesting to have that data, because then the engineer who's doing the report could really extrapolate that and see how the building is doing, how it's breathing, how it's using its resources, how it's, allocating all of these things. And then they could use that to give us the solutions to make the building operate a little bit more efficiently. And it's setting the benchmark for the year to year to year to year, so that we could see if it's sliding downwards. We could see if it's stagnant, if it's not changing. I guess it's just information. All the information is better.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, data is king nowadays. And, I think the whole, with the energy monitoring, and what you would use like a software like this for is just monitoring the energy consumption historically. You're doing it in real time, and then building predictive models off of it. So an engineer or an owner or manager kind of knows based on historical, what they could actually do to lower energy consumption. And here's a predictive model of what the technology thinks and is picking up on based on previous energy consumption, and taking into consideration different times of year, seasons. New York is a different climate all the time. And then you can have a year's worth of real-time data and to make better decisions that are ultimately going to save energy.
Is this interesting to you? Do you love it?
Yes, I do. I think that it is so important. I have technology sales in my background, so I like technology. I like software, but I've always been interested in energy consumption and making things more efficient, and then tying in building health. I've always been someone who is very interested in health and wellness and fit well and lead and well building and all of that. And both of these products support a fit well, a lead, or a well building certification for a building. I remember when well building came out, I was doing something more in the fitness industry, and I was I knew that this was the wave of the future. Also, to Rep Ohio, well building standard came out of Cleveland Clinic, and I was just I need to learn more about this. I need to learn how to help buildings do this. And I think that looking at energy and air is just one of the most important ways to do that.
Do you have any data on your clients now, how much more efficient on a percentage basis they've gotten year over year? Is there an average in the industry for you guys that you've seen analyzing the data? And there's two things that you could do. You could either get the data and do nothing with it,
right,
which makes no sense, or you could take the data and you could actually go and be proactive and try to get the data better next year. And I've seen a lot of buildings that do that, where they just get the bells and whistles, but they don't do anything with it. It's not the same. So I would rather be on the other side of it, where, okay, that's information in, and that's proactive measures out, how do we get it better? But what's the percentage wise roughly that you've seen buildings get better kind of year over year, if they're taking your data, if they're going and doing all the things that they need to do to make it a little bit more efficient to take care of the problems that they're seeing?
So I don't think I have a general percentage. I can follow up with you on that, because I personally just work with so many different cities, and then you have New York City, which I'm very privy to, and then that's just a whole different animal. But a good example is I have a client, and since COVID, this isn't even a year over year, but like we've helped him prove like, oh, I've saved almost $1 million because I changed these 3 processes, and it's since March of 2000 and whatever year, 2020.
Yeah.
So we can definitely like produce reports and benchmark that way. But as far as like what's an average percentage our clients, a Mach Energy client uses or saves every year, because we work so regionally and it's all different. I don't know that statistic, but you know, we do have all the data on like, you know, these are the dollars saved and this is what was done.
Yeah. But it's all about what you do with it. You have to,
Exactly.
whoever uses it has to have the wherewithal to go to the next step, or at least have somebody on hand that could take it and run with it. Because otherwise you're just looking at color codes and information. But I had a thought the other day. I'm like, all these buildings that are in the city with COVID, being in the city and obviously being everywhere, but with the filtration systems of the vents in the kitchens and the vents in the bathrooms. And if the vents aren't working right, everybody's worried about getting sick. Everybody's worrying about being without a mask. Obviously, I'm always masked if I'm out. But what if you have all of these ventilation systems that aren't working properly? You're just having all of this air sitting. And if somebody is sick, is it staying in the building? Is it going out of the building? Are we just transferring it from unit to unit? So I think that's the next push that we're going to see, is all that ventilation, just to make sure that it's all working properly, that it's cleaned out. Because there's companies out there that will clean all of the vents. It's very infrequently done. Like it's not something that's on the tip of any board, or for me, for boards or for building clients, but they're not actively thinking, oh, let's clean out the vents every 3 years. It's not something that's been done in the past 20 years that I've been doing this. But I think that's going to be the next step, is making sure that all these filtration systems, beyond just the HVAC system, because now we're talking about venting out of the building, for a healthy building versus the sick building where everybody, when as soon as you leave the office, you feel fine, but when you're working, you feel like you have a cold, or you feel like, you're smelling mold and all of those negative effects. But it'll be interesting next year in 2021, once we get out of 2020, thankfully, what the next series of steps will be, between New York City's guidelines and personal preference. What makes sense to keep these buildings running healthily.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like talking about the cleaning and things like that, but it's also just like, what do you need to do and what don't you need to do? And being more informed with better software, better data is just only going to help you make better decisions, or not, on like what kind of infrastructure needs to be replaced, or what should you implement in this building, and actually what's also going to stick around, because there's trends. And God forbid, I don't want any of my clients panic buying a new system when they don't need it, or they know that they need it and then they need even to spend even more dollars. So it comes down to exactly what you said. It's having this information, but also making decisions and using it in the ways where it's, to make and inform your decision.
This will probably also be the downfall of companies that can't. You always have the companies that can't react and move on and adapt. So I think because New York City, the one problem that I've always found with real estate in New York is that they're always almost 20 to 30 years behind the other rest of the world. So this is like a really, really important time. And what you do with this time, I feel like, is going to be whether you go out of business or you succeed, because not every company is willing to go outside of their comfort zone and adapt to this technology. This is now, or especially, we're doing every meeting. We're doing this on Zoom. I'm doing every meeting on Zoom now. Like that was unheard of a year ago for my industry. I don't know if it's going to go back, but for those companies that don't adapt to this type of lifestyle, it's going to be, it's going to be closed shop, because this is really important. And using all this data, using all this technology that we have in our hands, people are now going to search out the companies that can provide that, because now that's an added value that we now don't have. There's an expectation that whoever I hire or whoever's watching my store needs to be on top of all this. in terms of pricing, are you guys doing a subscription-based model, or is it a yearly fee? And who owns the meters that you put in? Is that still owned by you? Does the building own that? Because let's say we end the contract. Let's say it's a year contract. Do we own the meters? They just stay there and wait to be hooked up again? Or is that something that is proprietary to you? You own it and then you take it out once the contract's over?
Yeah, it's a good question. First, I want to add to what you were saying about being, a little behind. I think, it's exciting, especially in the last few years, what's been happening in the technology industry within real estate, but I think it was a slow catch on.
Yeah.
But and particularly in New York City, you're right. It's like, who's going to be more innovative? Who's going to adapt? Like one of our big clients, big New York City landlord, they're using the WellStat data in their app to show that, people in their buildings, like, hey, this is like IQ, looking good and things like that. And we're seeing more and more clients kind of adapt to that and take that on. But those are the very forward thinking ones.
Yeah. Like, do you have an API that I could take if I had it in a building, that I could take that and either put it on my website, or I could put it on you said an app. So I'm imagining that's available. But I could work with you guys from a programming perspective to put that wherever I needed to, so that boards, let's say, could have a dashboard for it, that's just a view only, or as you said, the residents, if there's an app for it.
Absolutely. I'm glad we're bringing this up. This is definitely something that we wanted to make available for use in those ways. So we've done that for for our big New York City clients. Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, they're doing some innovative things with it. Using it in an app, I think, is huge. And I think there's going to be even some more creative things that start happening in the next year as people are trying to, figure out more solutions to, to problems like this.
So swing it back to the question about whose equipment is it and how do we, do I get to keep it?
I guess. I don't know. Just kidding. You're my friend, so I'll let you. No, so it is a subscription model, and that's because you want to subscribe to the software. With the WellStat, it's like, however many sensors you need in a building. And then it is a yearly subscription model to have access to the software and the data, and get all of the service, the over-the-air calibration of the sensors and all of that kind of stuff. So engineering teams aren't walking around and making sure the sensors are working or calibrating them, which can actually take forever. So we find that most clients prefer to go the subscription way.
Yeah.
Would you prefer do you want to own the sensors?
No. Once we're done. There's no need for it. It's a brick once I can't have access to the software.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was just curious if we buy it up front, or if you just install it and that's part of the, like, you could take that sensor and put it on another building once you get that client. Like, it's not only needing to be on my building. So once that contract or subscription model is up, you as a company could take it and implant it onto another building, as long as that technology is still relevant.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So that's your recapture, is your hardware, your software. We're just getting access to it for the subscription, which is totally fine. That's how things work these days.
Yeah, absolutely. We're flexible, but it is most clients want to do it that way anyways. What was I going to say?
So what's the website where people could see the actual product?
So you can just search WellStat anywhere. We have a LinkedIn page. The website is wellstat.io, WELLSTAT.io. And then iES MACH, the website is iesmach.com.
Okay. And as I said, I'm going to put your LinkedIn information, and I'll put your contact information in the description of, if we put this on YouTube, definitely on the podcast. If we're definitely going to put it on there. I'm on the wellstat.io website. So I could check that out as well. Actually, it's funny. We were talking about Marshall Fulton, and that's how we met about a year ago. He just emailed me this morning asking if he could come on to the podcast, probably the second week of January. So he'll be on then.
Nice. Yeah. Well, one day we'll have to do a reunion.
I know.
Julie that was with us too.
one day. And I feel like June of next year, we'll all be able to be in the same room. We'll still be wearing masks, but at least we could, all be traveling and all be together, which would be fun.
Yeah, masks definitely. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again, and hopefully
same.
sooner than later.
And I appreciate you coming on. It's been excellent having you. I like the product. I'm trying to figure out a way to get it into more of our buildings, because just as you have what I said before with management companies where you have a lot of catching up with the times, I find the same thing with my clients. It depends on the clients. There are some that are very tech forward, and then there are some that, if you could give them paper for everything, they'd be so happy. It's so, you have to that's part of the problem too. We just have to get everybody moving forward, and just seeing the benefit of it. But I think the real true benefit is for me, from my perspective as a manager of residential buildings, is going to be those buildings that are over 25,000 square feet. It's those that I have to watch the energy, and it's not enough to do the every year, what's called either local law 133 or local law 84, depending on your size. It's the energy usage, but real-time consumption, super important. That would be great. Absolutely. We'll figure it out. We'll get you somewhere. I want to test pilot this. I want to see how it works, and I want to see. My big thing is, okay, I have it. I have this data. How do I get it better? That's where I want to see what I can do with it. So that'll be interesting if we can work together to get to that point where then I can be like, okay, this one pilot building worked out this way. Then I could bring it to the other buildings and say, okay, this is what we saw. This is now we have context on it. Now we have historical data. We've got a savings of, let's say 10%. I'm just throwing out a number. Let's say we've got a saving of 10% because we did X, Y, and Z after we saw that this data came back as this. Maybe there's a payback period. Maybe it's right away you're seeing that savings in the first year or two. But as long as you're paying for it yourself, which it sounds like you will, as long as you do the right things, and it's up to you as the client, that's the way to push that towards new clients. It's just the offset. You're going to be spending the same money or less because you can make it better.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's something that we do, like we can absolutely do with you if you want to we'll work with you to create like your own little case study and seeing, just to show the actual possibilities of what could be for your clients by using this technology. We do that all the time. So we can absolutely talk about that.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll do that off podcast when nobody's bored. So Ashley, sweet. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been awesome. And since this is the last one of the year, I want to wish you a happy new year.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me. I'm really glad we got to do this. Hopefully this was closing out 2020 on a positive note, whatever that means. So I really appreciate it.
This was perfect. And as I said, Ashley, I'm going to put all of your information in the description. So if anybody's made it this far, all you have to do is go to the description of the podcast and you'll be able to click open links to get to Ashley's information. So thanks. And we'll talk next year.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.